Welcome. I'm Carl Frederick, and I will be interviewing individuals for Kenosha Voices, an oral history project of the Kenosha County Historical Society in conjunction with Kenosha Community Media. I have worked in newspapers for more than 40 years as an editor and a reporter. 38 and a half of those years were at the Kenosha News. I am also a member of the Kenosha County Historical Society Board. We hope you enjoy these programs. I'm speaking with Arlene Runkel, a longtime participant and volunteer at the Kenosha County Fair. Thank you for joining me today.
It's our pleasure.
Tell me, how long have you been involved in the Kenosha County Fair?
Probably from birth, which is 80 years ago.
And what are your earliest memories?
Oh goodness, the earliest memories was helping in the old Wilmot Gym, which is now torn down. That was the 4-H building where we had plays and things like that and organizations. And then after that, it was the kiddie parade. I had a bicycle with a basket on it, and my dog always rode in the bicycle basket. And
when was that, roughly?
Oh, I was probably 9 years old.
Okay.
And they said, well, why don't you enter it in the kiddie parade? So I did, and we decorated. It was back then we called it a bicycle parade, and decorate your bicycle and had the dog in it. And the dog never, ever, ever jumped out. But someplace in the fair, he saw my father, who was president of the Fair Council back then too, saw my father, jumped out and ran across the field to my father. So that's one of I remember.
So how long did you participate in the bicycle parade?
Started at 9 and still am now.
And what are you doing now with the bicycle parade?
My husband, Roger Runkel, his mother took over the kiddie parade chairmanship many years ago. And as she just kind of weaved out, I guess I wove in. And about 5 years ago, then we went on to my nephew's daughter. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 generations now.
4 generations of your family involved in the bicycle parade?
So now Miranda Bird Palmer is the chairman of the kiddie parade. Children's parade it's supposed to be.
Okay. And how else? So go ahead.
We have like 26 different entries: fairy tale, occupation, farmer, Kenosha County, the theme for this year's entry. And we get about 100 to 150 children in the parade. They get free entry as long as they're in the costume for the day, and they get a goodie bag and a premium.
And what is the age level at which children participate in this parade?
Tiny up until 14 years.
14. And you mentioned the goodie bag. You helped put those together as part of your volunteer work?
Yes.
And what did that comprise?
That comprised of the dairy promotions always gave us some, an eraser in the shape of a cow, a necklace with cheese on it, and we usually got something from McDonald's. The fair would give us money for candy, and we would go, buy candy. Local businesses would give us notebooks. We always had pencils. Officer Friendly would give us suckers and something. So we had a fun, full thing. And you put all those in a pile around our dining room table, and you just had an assembly line going around. You'd grab a bag, put this in. So we had usually whoever we could recruit. And then when your bag was full, you stuck it on a broomstick. And then when you went to the fair, you had about 4 broomsticks full of candy bags. And then you start handing them out.
Okay. You handed these out after the parade to every individual. And how was the parade organized? You mentioned costumes and things like that in terms of being in the parade and decorate your bicycle. So what kinds of categories within that bicycle parade did you have? You had one for best overall costume or best kind of costume, or how did that?
You'd have 26 different entry possibilities, and it could be a fairy tale, so you could have or a TV character, or occupation, so you'd have a farmer, or a electrician, or somebody who the kids would dress up as different things. And it's generations of people that would come and enter their family. And one of our favorites always was Dennis Flater. His father was principal at Wheatland Grade School. And he would build things like boats and have his tiny little baby granddaughters in it. It was always like, what's Dennis doing this year? And we had people that, every year they'd come up and say, oh, thank you for doing this, because it's such fun. I mean, the kids everybody's going to at least get $1, and a ribbon, and a goodie bag. And the goodie bag also had free ice cream from the Farm Bureau, and also from Rural Insurance gave out free ice cream. And now we also have free pretzels from the pretzel tent thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a fun thing to.
Okay, then as a participant, what else did you do? I mean, you were in the kiddie parade, the bicycle parade. What else did you become involved in as a participant?
Well, my mother and father were 4-H'ers. My mother, I have a picture of her when she entered she demonstrated millinery hats at the Wisconsin State Fair, probably in about 1922. And she said they stayed in tents, and so she demonstrated. So then our family kids demonstrated, and so then we made our kids also demonstrate. So we demonstrated at the county fair, and if you were awarded, you went to the state fair and could stay at the state fair. We also were in sewing, and we were in dress review, and if you were fortunate enough to get an award so that you could also go to the state fair and be in the dress review at the state fair too. Kenosha County Fair always had dress reviews, and you demonstrated, you had a review of all the dresses that people had made.
Okay. Now, the Kenosha County Fair is after the state fair, so
I know.
How could you go to the state fair from the county fair?
Because years ago it wasn't.
Okay, so this is something new that
Yes, they
or
changed
recent.
it. But you still can enter the state fair. You can take your things to the state fair and then bring them back here. It's just a little bit more difficult. So.
Okay. And you participated in 4-H, and what kind of projects did you enter as 4-H projects?
It was cooking, sewing, home furnishings. My husband did gardenery, vegetables.
Okay, was there anything that you particularly focused on?
Sewing,
Sewing?
yeah. Ferocious sewer, put it that way. Sewed my wedding dress. Our daughter sewed. She sewed her own prom dresses and homecoming dresses and friends' prom dresses.
So you did a lot of sewing for the family.
Yes, yeah. Back then, you had no money. You sewed.
And has that changed?
Yeah, I don't sew like that anymore.
Do you think a lot of people do?
The sewing is down in the open class at the county fair. And even in 4-H, it is down as more so. Okay. 4-H has brought on a lot of new entries, levels, different opportunities. And sewing is probably not as prevalent as it used to be. I mean, now, if you want, I just took our granddaughter shopping Thursday, and you can get reasonable clothes in a lot of reasonable stores. If you think about, 50 years ago, the cost is not that much different in clothes. It's, they're not made here anymore, but quality and originality is still going to be homes, when you want to do it and have something all of your own, you sew it.
Okay. Was there anything else that you participated in?
Was in the Queen contest, and our family had the John Deere business back then. So one of my recollections too was we would ride over to the county fair because the John Deere business had a demonstration, an exhibit there. Mm-hmm. So we had a tent, and they would bring over maybe a wagon and corn pickers and things like that. So we were allowed to sit in the bottom of the wagon and ride in the wagon all the way to the fair, which obviously you can't do anymore, but 60 years ago, 65 years ago, you could do that.
Okay, and then I won't say as you grew out of participating, because you continued to participate, how many years did you actually enter things into the fair?
I think you age out at about 19
Okay, but as 4-H.
as 4-H.
But I mean,
then you can
beyond
go,
that.
forever,
And how, okay.
forever.
When was the last time that you actually exhibited something at the fair?
2 years ago, I took some jewelry.
Okay, so it's been a lot of years.
Yeah.
And what did that amount to in terms of ribbons and, there's money involved too. I mean,
There's a little bit of money, and it's just the learning, because like with jewelry, or especially with cooking and sewing and photography, oh my goodness, you've got to come and watch, because you learn so much. I'm back helping registering and recording the photography, which I never did before, so I knew nothing of photography, what it did on that end of the building. We were so busy on the cooking and sewing and everything. And the judges are so patient, showing you, this one I like because the composition is good, and I like because it's a third here and a third there in the ceiling, the sky. You learn so much. And even in the cooking, you can listen to them and they'll say, okay, this one was baked too long. This one the butter was too soft. You learn so much of that with the cooking and the sewing and the home furnishings. Quilting is really big this probably about the last 10 years. And the judges, there's somebody this year and last year, they're actually quilting while you're at the fair. So they've got their big long arm and they're quilting, so you can come and watch that. And they've got demonstrations. Somebody's there on bee, because we've got now entries. You can enter honey and cheese. And you ask them and they'll put an entry in for you.
So if you say, I make cheese, can I have an entry in the fair? And then they say, okay, now there's a cheese category?
Well, if enough people ask, they'll think about it.
Okay.
And as something goes out, maybe there's only one entry or no entries, you may find after a couple of years that entry is gone. So.
Okay, and you mentioned the Wilmot gym, the old gym that you used to exhibit in. How did that change over time? I mean, you had the gym before they built the new gym, and then what's happened? Well,
the old gym got knocked down when they built the new Wilmot High School. And after that gym, we actually had we called it the women's department in the new Wilmot High School gymnasium. They would put paper down on the floor, and all of the things that are now in the open class building were in the high school gymnasium. And then the flowers and the vegetables were down the corridor next to it. And I remember when I was entering at that stage, our oldest son, who is 58 now, I would bring him in a stroller and watch the judging, because you always learned so much, even back, to see what it was. And we would bring a lot of things. I think at one time, we had like 40 entries. It was just a mess. I still can remember having an apple pie, bringing my young brother-in-law, who was probably 10 years old or so, climbed. I had the cherry pie or the apple pie in the car, and he got in and put his foot in the pie. And I still entered it. I think I got a second prize on it, even with a footprint in it.
So you mentioned this, it was called the women's department, but that changed.
Yes.
And when did that change?
That didn't change until 2012, and now it's called an open class.
And you're no longer in the gym
No.
at Wilmot either.
They built a brand new big metal blue building down on the other end, and it just became obvious that it was an imposition on the Wilmot High School, and they really didn't want that much traffic in and out and everything. So we built our own. That was in 1979, I think, that they built a new building.
Okay. And can you just describe to me some of the categories that there might be within a larger category, like a subset of this? Like if you...
Oh goodness. Cooking. White bread, yellow bread, angel food bread, quick bread, yeast rolls, quick rolls. I mean, you bake it, they'll have an entry for it. Some of the biggest is, of course, chocolate chip cookies. You can have 15, 20 entries on chocolate chip cookies. So if you come home with a prize on a chocolate chip cookies, you've got it made. You've
proved something?
proved something, and then we all want your recipes. And sometimes years ago they made a recipe book of a lot of us that entered things, and I bought a lot of them and I gave them out to a lot of the family because those are the treasured old. Marion Ling, her apple pie, the best always. Always. Her apple pie recipe was in there.
Did you ever figure out why? Is it the apples?
I think it was
she
the
used?
apples. The apples. We've got generations. We've got mothers and sons that enter. I'm trying to think of the Merks enter. We've been getting a lot more coming in from the Kenosha area, which is really good because everybody's baking. After COVID, you stayed home and baked and you sewed and you did things at home. You started making flower arrangements.
So today, in the open class, how many kind of categories are there, or how many people? You mentioned 14 or so chocolate chip cookie entries. But just how many categories are out there? You mentioned all these breads as well.
I counted them out on some of them. If you want to enter your flowers or your vegetables or your corn stalks or your honey, there's 284 different categories in just plants and soil science, it's called. And in foods and nutrition, 182 different things that you can bake or can or freeze dry.
And then that becomes a single category
That's
for anybody to put something in
Yes.
there.
So you could have dried apples in a jar. They don't usually open jellies. They will not open the jellies or canned tomatoes or canned corn. But she can tell. These are qualified judges. You have to have a certification to be a judge, a Wisconsin certification. And she can tell how much headspace you have. If you cooked it too long, you learn so much.
Okay. And
They have, I was just going to say, there's 74 quilting. We even have charcuterie boards this year. So,
wow.
something for everybody.
I guess. So, with all these categories, how does somebody find out what the categories are that I might want to be interested in?
Well, I cut the numbers from the internet. You go on the Kenosha County Fair and look for the fair book and download it. It's right on your computer.
So every year there's a fair book
Yes.
made up that has everything in it as to what you can enter here, what 4-H entries as well
Yes,
is in there?
4-H is a separate part. That's going to be the youth program.
Right.
Then this also has all of the categories, like for the kiddie parade, the children's parade, what time it is, all the different entries you can enter in. And we will always try, and if we've got 10 of the same entry, we'll try and move them around so that everybody gets a fair chance. Cooking, they don't do that. I mean, if you got chocolate chip cookies, you're in chocolate chip cookies.
Okay, so tell me, early on in your memory, what were some of the most popular categories? You mentioned sewing was one of them. So what were the most popular kinds of categories people entered? And then how did that change over time?
Funny you should ask. This was a form of friendly competition, but it was also something, I mean, you got premiums. Years ago,
Premium is
a money premium.
something.
If you got one of the 4 classification, you would get $1 premium. And you're going to sew anyway, so you might as well try and do a good job and enter it in the fair and earn a little extra income because, you're home with family. And when you're first married, you don't have a lot of income. So one of the things that I always made was an apron because there weren't too many aprons entered. And you could get very creative, and children's t-shirts, children's bibs. I remember making how many bibs and copying pictures out of a coloring book and appliquing it on their bib. You're going to make bibs anyway, so you might as well enter it in the fair and get a couple dollars. And the difference is aprons went away, and I noticed aprons are back. again, people are wearing aprons because they're cooking more again.
What are some of the other things that were real popular back when you first started entering things in the women's department?
Angel food cake, and yeast rolls was down, but now it's coming back again. Now it's a lot of decorated cakes. You can have a real cake, or you can have a styrofoam cake decorated, and that's the new entries. I think a lot of it was the knitting and crocheting is back up again.
So it had been popular and then declined, and now it's increasing again.
It's
How about, you mentioned home furnishings. What type of things were there, and are they still doing those?
Yes and no. We used to have a huge entry of table place settings, and you'd have one placemat and a napkin and your plates and a centerpiece and some extra things, and we had many of them, and that is down as quilting has come up. That has come down. Now my theory is that a lot of us that entered over and over just got tired of having one napkin and one place setting.
Nothing matched.
No, nothing matched. Because you'd probably sew your tablecloth, and eventually but the same ones, when you go, some of the same ones are still getting the prizes and entering. It's so fun to watch it.
Okay. You mentioned that you had been involved with the fair pretty much since birth.
Yep.
And you mentioned 4 generations of your family involved in the bicycle parade. Is this something that all families participate in? How is it in their blood, or is it?
The people that are there for this many generations, yes. When my mother-in-law Hazel Runkel passed away and phased out, then Jill Anderson took over the open class. And I was talking with her because she was giving me some information. She said she's been there 50 years. And Barb Rollins, she and Barb and Dorothy are still running the foods and the flowers and the plants and things like that. Now Sue Crane has taken over as superintendent of the whole building, which my mother-in-law had been. But sorry, I lost the question.
No, it was still about family participation generationally. Like you mentioned, when I was a kid, my parents made me do this.
Yes.
And when I had children, I made them do this.
Yeah.
And do they
'Cause it
have
was good
children
for-
today, and are they the same doing it?
No, they're not demonstrating. They made them demonstrate too, but I don't think it's going to. The demonstrations aren't as big as it used to be. I don't see them at the county fair. We would demonstrate at the county fair and then hopefully at the state fair, but they're not doing that anymore either. One of the generations, though, Jill Anderson just told me that Barb Rollins, who is working in one, her daughter-in-law is now going to take over the foods this year. So we've got, again, 2 generations going there.
Family affair.
Family affair. Same thing in the barns with 4-H. I mean, there's generations and generations. But the family farms are out there that are still in the family, so you see that. And a lot of the people out here that have the farming background stay on because it is something that you inherit down the road. But
So what does the county fair mean to the long-standing fair families? I mean, what is it about the fair to them?
it's other than a great family, wholesome place to go and do something fun and learn, it's such a reunion. Because if you were at the 4-H, you worked in the 4-H pizza building. And now the next 2 generations later, they're still working in the pizza building, selling pizza on the corner. Everybody knows it's there. Everybody knows that corn is across the behind that. It seems like it keeps on coming, that you wouldn't miss the fair because you're going to not see all of your neighbors and maybe bring somebody new out. That's, and that's the hope, is that we bring more people and bring the city and the county, because the I-94 used to cut the two in half. And now that everybody is so mobile, they can easily come to the fair, and it's not like Never Land way out there.
Was there attempts to get the city involved earlier, and are there new attempts, or how is that?
Well, there's 4-H in the city too. You can have show a horse and not have a horse. So you can be in a lot of the different projects and still come out. So 4-H is a good way to bring it out, but everybody loves to come to the tractor pull and the demolition derbies and the stock car races. So that brings a lot of the people from all over, and hopefully that brings them out. And if you don't want to sit through the stock car race, you go to look at all of the rest of the buildings and things like that. So
how has the fair changed to attract and get more interest, not just the exhibition of products, but what else has been going on in development of what the fair is to bring more people?
I think socially it's done a lot to bring more people in to be social. Some place that you and your friends can come, and if you don't want to go to the beer tent, which has the louder bands, then you can go to the new Barrel Room, which is in next to the old commercial building, and it's got chairs and bands and just a lot of, the corn tossing. There's games and things that you can do more quietly if you want a little bit more quiet and places to rest. But I think that what they're doing to get that is bringing in new grandstand things too. The demolition derbies, which are popular with everybody. Different entries that you can bring in, different specials. In entries this year, the theme is hay bales and cowtails. So one of the things you could enter as a specialty is some type of an animal, a cow, made of at least 5 different fruits and vegetables some way.
As long as it represents
a cow.
You can
Cowtails.
come up with something.
Yep. Yeah. So there's always something changing.
Okay, and what do you think the fair is for just people who show up? I mean, not the farm families who are it's ingrained in their family history.
Right. You do it because it's there.
But someone who hasn't been to the fair or only been a couple times, what is the fair about for them? What is the attraction?
I think it's something that if they've never been to it, it's a little overwhelming, because it's something different on every walkway. You could have a skywire act over here. You could have a pony ride over here. You can walk through the chicken building or the rabbit building, or walk up and down and see the 4-H kids cleaning the manure out from the, and if you have never been on a farm to see animals, maybe over here they're doing a bale tossing contest. Maybe on Saturday or Sunday they're selling their steers, and you're watching the auction, and the kids are parading their animals around in the ring, which they've worked all year to get them to train like that. There's a sale to raise money for 4-H, and you may spend $200 to buy somebody's turkey, because you know that the proceeds are going to go to somebody. Or you may just decide that this is the best place to get fair food. It's nothing like all the gyros and the cream puffs, and the Shoreland has cream puffs. So if you don't go to the state fair, you can get your cream puff here. Commercial building west of the I, there's always something there. Good place to buy your John Deere toys. At Twinkle's has his. Go through the 4-H building. See what other young people are doing. See what other old people are doing. It's just something new in every corner. And a good petting zoo too, where the kids can come in and actually hold a chicken, pet a goat, pet a cat, pet a rabbit.
Well, thank you for joining me today.
Well, there's so much to say about the fair. We just love it. My daughter once said It's even better than Christmas. So, hope you come out, see it.
Thank
And
you.
the other thing is that a good way to get introduced, if you're interested in entering anything, come out and look and sit, watch the judging, come and volunteer. Call the office and ask for Jill Anderson or Sue Crane and say, I'd like to come and help. Even if it just means sitting in the open class building in an evening, because we always have somebody sitting throughout the days answering questions or just watching it so that people have some place to sit. So come on out and volunteer. See you soon.
Thank you.
You're welcome.